Hello to all joining us from around Australia today in the APAC region and further globally. My name is Davor Stanek and I'm the Manager of Infrastructure and Innovation at Fight MND. Fight MND in Australia, an Australian-based charity focused on raising awareness of ALS MND, fundraising and supporting vital research to improve the quality of life for individuals living with MND and discovering new treatments and a cure to realise our bold vision of a world without MND. I'd like to welcome you to this second webinar focused on the Longitude Prize for ALS called AI Meets ALS, Why APAC Should Be in the Room. And I thank you for making the time to be here. I'll begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where this webinar is being hosted here in Melbourne in Australia, and pay respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to elders past and present. The Longitude Prize for ALS is principally funded by the Motor Neuron Disease Association and designed and delivered by ChallengeWorks, supported by Nesta, with additional funders making the Longitude Prize for ALS a truly global endeavour. I'd like to introduce and welcome our presenters today, Dr. Sophie Nyberg, the Head of Research Partnerships at the MND Association, and Sophie, who has helped establish the fellowship partnership between the National Institute for Health and Care Research and MNDA, has actively promoted the UK MND Register and is a strong advocate for collaborative research. Professor Amar Al-Shalabi, Professor of Neurology and Complex Disease Genetics at King's College London, Director of King's MND Centre and also co-director of the UK MND Research Institute, and has received multiple honours, including the Forbes Norris Award from the International Alliance of ALS MND Associations. And the third presenter with us today, Professor Nortina Shahrazela, Professor of Neurology at University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur, who leads the multidisciplinary ALS MND clinical and research team, has served as Secretary of the International Federation of Clinical Neurophysiology, and is President of the Pan-Asian Consortium for Treatment and Research in ALS, also known as PACTALS. The format of this webinar is that Sophie will first present and give insight onto the Longitude Prize for ALS from a principal funder's perspective, that being the MND Association, followed by Amar, who will present a background to the Longitude Prize and its objectives and provide some insight into the judging criteria and processes. And finally, a Q&A session in which Sophie and Amar will be joined by Tina to discuss and answer your questions on the Longitude Prize, its objectives, judging processes, tips on applications, and importantly, why teams from our APAC region should be involved and participate. Throughout the presentation and question and answer session, please type in your questions into a chat. The way to do this, there's a chat function at the top there with the circle that you can click on. This will enable a tab to the right to appear and type your message in the chat, in the box, followed by posting your message by clicking on the send arrow to the right. So I will stop sharing and looking forward to the discussion following the presentations, and I will throw to Dr. Sophie Nyberg.
Great, thank you very much, Davor. Let me share my screen. Okay, so as Davor said, I'm going to talk a bit about the Longitude Prize from the perspective of the MND Association as principal funder. And as a very brief introduction to the prize, it's £7.5 million, which is approximately $10 million US, and runs over 5 years. And currently the entries are open for the very first stage of the prize, set to close on the 3rd of December 2026. And this is the discovery stage, where 20 teams will receive £100,000 to identify new high potential drug targets. And so the very core of this prize is to bring together AI and tech communities with the ALS research communities to find new targets for ALS. And so over 5 years, the prize will support global multidisciplinary teams to identify new drug targets. And so as we know, MND remains one of the toughest diseases to treat with very limited therapeutic options. And to change that, this prize brings together data holders, funders, AI specialists, and patient voices as well to overcome barriers in early stage drug discovery. And importantly, we're not just providing prize money, but we're also looking to curate the largest data sets in ALS. And for us as principal funders, that's something that's really important to us because we know that there's some really great data sets out there for ALS, but they tend to be a little scattered. And furthermore, sometimes it can be difficult for industry to access these data sets. And obviously, industry is a really big sector that we want to be able to participate in ALS drug discovery to facilitate finding a cure. And so we're providing these curated data sets on an Amazon web server, and also technical expertise and computing power and bringing industry and academics together, essentially everything that's needed to supercharge innovation in this space. And so our involvement, we've been essentially involved from the start. ChallengeWorks approached us to create this prize, and we're contributing £5 million. We're also bringing a lead on the patient and public involvement, including campaigner later on in the prize. I do believe we're starting with the campaigning in years 2 and 3. And so this is a deeply collaborative effort, and we're bringing a distinct patient and mission-focused perspective. And so really, when ChallengeWorks approached us, we thought this is a really timely and innovative opportunity because we know that the AI field is experiencing a bit of a gold rush, and there are so many incredible opportunities and so much happening really quickly. And the M&D Association has never funded anything like this before. It's a really big program prize for us. And we just don't know what's likely to be the most helpful in advancing research and treatments. And so this Longitude Prize is structured to serve as a funnel for innovation and capturing a wide variety of ideas and approaches. And then through competitive rounds, there we go. Through competitive rounds, we're sort of funneling that down into the best possible treatments. And so this truly is an international effort. We have co-funders, including Fight M&D in Australia. We have the 10,000 Brains Project in the US, Answer ALS, and the Packard Centre. And we have multiple UK funders, including Nesta, the Alan Davidson Foundation, My Name's Study Foundation, and LifeArc. And we've already seen strong interest from research teams and data holders around the world. And importantly as well, even though this prize lasts for 5 years, we fully intend for this prize to bring together the community internationally and forge new partnerships that will last for much longer than that. And we want to create engagement with AI institutes and biotech accelerators and M&D organizations all across North America, Europe, and Asia. And so this prize aims really to create an ecosystem as opposed to being a one-off competition. And we've now appointed the judging panel of 12, which are all leaders in the field and come across from neuroscience, technology, and pharmaceutical sectors, and they are also international. And so in summary, our hopes for the prize really is to bring together an international research community, including AI and tech. We want to raise awareness, and of course, we want to find new treatments for ALS. And so we're inviting innovators everywhere to take part to find new treatments for ALS. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. For your presentation. We'll now move to Amar's presentation. Thanks, Amar.
Thank you very much. So, as Sophie's said, the Longitude Prize is an international project. And the idea is that we really bring the community together. You can see more about it either using the QR code or the URL at the bottom of this slide. The Longitude Prize was founded in 1714, actually by the UK government, and it was why we all have wristwatches available now. It was a prize to try and find a way to map longitude, because latitude is easy to determine by the position of the sun at midday, but longitude requires a very accurate clock so that you can see where the sun is when midday is compared to where you are on the planet. And for that, you need a watch. And the Longitude Prize was actually very effective at bringing together lots of different methods for trying to determine that. And the Marine Chronometer won, and that was a handheld watch, because before that we only had grandfather clocks. And then that was miniaturized further into wristwatches. So that shows that it works. Actually, it's been launched again a few years ago by Nesta and ChallengeWorks, and was won for an antimicrobial resistance prize. So that had a very similar structure to this prize. There was multiple stages with competing teams that were narrowed down, and then that was announced last year. So we know that this method, this strategy, is very good at bringing innovative groups together and really breaking the mold of how research is done. Lucy Hawking here is saying that AI is able to solve complex diseases. So obviously AI is not yet at a stage where it can solve complex diseases alone. It needs human help. So that's what the purpose of this project is to bring together all the groups, but to harness AI to do that. And the foundations of the prize are that knowledge of the disease, we know that that's transformed really dramatically. If you compare what this is like to when I started back in 1994, our knowledge is dramatically different. And as people on the call will know, we now have tofersen, which can treat SOD1 ALS, so a rare inherited form of motor neurone disease. About 2% of people carry that gene variant. And we know that ALS is multifactorial and heterogeneous. In other words, it's not just a single monolithic disease. So unlike something like Huntington's disease, where there's a single genetic cause for all cases, for ALS, there are multiple genetic causes, there are multiple pathological patterns and multiple clinical presentations. And that heterogeneity is what's made it quite complex, but also is what makes it possible that AI approaches might be helpful. And we do have huge amounts of high quality data. So those have been collected over many years. And the prize brings those data sets together, as you've heard. So some of the data sets are already international. For example, the Project Mind data, which is international whole genome sequencing data from about currently 12,000 people with ALS, has been included in this prize. And that's true for other data sets internationally. And although those data sets have existed before, they've never been available in one place where you can just get them through a single application. It's always previously required multiple applications. So that's one of the great advantages of applying for the prize this way. And we know that AI could potentially change the game. So I think it's important to point out we're not kind of blindly saying, oh, AI is going to be the answer here. There are obviously currently limitations to what AI can do, and those have to be worked around for people using AI. But it's likely also over the 5 years of this prize that the methods that AI enables and the quality of AI available will also dramatically increase. So the access to the data you've got is shown here. So there'll be nearly 10,000 people with ALS whose data is available, and about 3,500 controls. And you can see the breakdown of where those data sets come from underneath. So Project Mine from the Netherlands and the UK comprises nearly half of the data. ALS compute data, and then New York Genome Center, Answer ALS, and the ALS Therapy Discovery Institute data for cases as well. And the clinical information going with those, so there's multiomics data, so that's transcriptomics, which you can see there, epigenomics and proteomics. It's important to point out that it's not necessarily the case that for each that there's a one-on-one relationship. So just because somebody has DNA available, it doesn't mean the transcriptomics will be from that same person and the epigenomics will be from that same person and the proteomics. But there certainly are considerable numbers where that overlap exists. And even if it doesn't exist for all of the data, for all of the types of data, it will exist for subsets of the data. So for example, nearly all of the Project Mind data has epigenomics available, and a significant subset has epigenomics and transcriptomics available. As you've heard from Sophie, the prize stages are over 5 years. Even though the prize is over 5 years, each actual work section is, well, the first one's 9 months and then the other two are about a year long each. But there's nothing to stop people working through those in between, so while the judging is happening. So for example, between December 2026 and May 27, while waiting for the outcome of round 1, teams could continue to work. But these are the official work schedules. This is probably the most important slide in the presentation, which is the judging criteria. And as you can see, the different criteria are weighted. So the most important thing is the use of innovative computational methods. Multidisciplinary expertise and robust scientific rationale and milestones are also important, and between them, more important than the innovative computational methods. But the single most important thing is that there is an innovative computational method being used. Replication and data robustness at this stage of the project is important, but not as important as the others. The same for accelerated pathway to clinical impact, which is a way to demonstrate that the proposed project has legs to actually translate into a therapy, and leveraging resources. So how much of the resource has been used, and how much have the applicants been able to bring in additional resources as a result of the project. So the prize is open to applications worldwide until the 3rd of December. So by then, you need to be able to put together your multidisciplinary team and your plan of action. And then the prize organisers, so that's ChallengeWorks and Nesta, are able to facilitate new partnerships. So if you don't have a member of the multidisciplinary team that you need, you can reach out to them and they will partner people. And that kind of approach will carry on throughout the entire project. So you've seen already the partners from Sophie's slide. You can see it's primarily funded by the Motor Neurone Disease Association of England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and by ChallengeWorks and by Nesta, and then has support from the other institutions on this slide. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amar, and thank you, Sophie, for your presentations detailing aspects of the prize and what the judges in particular will be looking forward for in the judging criteria. And I'll start off with, I'll very much open to questions now, so please start typing in your questions so we can relay them to Sophie, Tina and Amar, Tina who's joined us as well, so that we can relay them and have discussions around your questions. I can start off by going back to artificial intelligence and being a significant component of the prize. And but you know, coming back to what's happened with AI over the last 5 years and what you're looking forward to being utilised with the Longitude Prize on ALS.
Are you happy for me to answer that, Darryl?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. So I suppose the major advance in AI over the past 5 years has been the development of large language models. Prior to that, we were using deep learning methods, which are kind of clustering type approaches. And even the definition of AI is very loose here, because to some extent, deep learning, for example, is simply advanced statistical methods that are done computationally. But it's likely that as large language models develop further, and there are multiple different types of large language model, that those different aspects of those will lend themselves to the prize. So really, so a large language model, just to be clear, is things like ChatGPT, Gemini, and those kinds of approaches, Perplexity. There are many different types of those approaches, but they're all black box type approaches. So it's a kind of set of, it's usually neural nets. So it's computational layers, and each one pattern recognizes and feeds that output to the next layer. And then that somehow generates, after training, the output that you're looking for. But the problem with those methods at the moment, the major problem is that they can hallucinate, so they can confidently give you an answer that's false. And I think hopefully as time goes on, that will improve. But obviously, any entrants need to have that kind of aspect under control.
Thank you. Any more input on that one from Sophie or Tina?
Yeah, my AI knowledge is not it's not great. I should declare. I mean, I think the thing that gets me, all of us, I think, we're using AI these days with a lot of things, even if it's just a very quick, check to give a broad overview. But I think just particularly for this prize, it's just the speed with which, that you get the answer, which is a lot faster than the human capabilities to do that. So that's one. And then the other thing is, for it to be dealing with the complexities, which is completely what ALS is. It's a very complex disease. We've got, Amar just demonstrated or showed us all the data that's available with Project Mind and all the other databases. You've got, genomics, proteomics. So making those connections, I think, this is where AI, leveraging people who really know how to utilize AI to the max and working together with neurodegenerative specialists, which is what we're looking for here, because ALS, I do feel there is a huge overlap with the other neurodegenerative diseases. I think just getting these individuals on board, partnering with people who are experts in AI, I'm really, really excited to see where we're going to go in the next 5 years. It's just very exciting. And yeah, so that's where I see this. So I'm hoping to learn through this process of judging. Sophie, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also because ALS is so incredibly complex, I think harnessing AI for precision medicine is a really promising new avenue as well. I think precision medicine will really advance treatments for ALS, and AI is the best way to do that because there's just so much information out there, as you've alluded to, Tina, that human beings potentially can't do that on their own with all the high throughput screening and genomics, proteomics, and so on. It's really helpful to have large language models and AI facilitating that.
Thank you. I just want to look at one of the criteria there that you mentioned, Amar, the use of innovative computational methods, and bring that down to how important is novelty in these methods versus proven effectiveness in methods that already exist when evaluating these computational methods as a judge. I bring that because one of the purposes, or the main purposes, is to identify new targets that may be relevant, or that are relevant, druggable targets that are relevant for treating ALS. Now, does it matter whether the computational methods are new and innovative or ones that are established, or, how do you see that as a judge?
So it does matter very much that they're innovative. That doesn't mean that they have to be completely unheard of in human history before. So you can use existing methods, but adapt them in a novel way, or pair them in a novel type of pipeline. So the key thing is that they should be innovative. That, as you can see, that's weighted 30%. And the reason that's selected, that innovation is important, is because we're anticipating that if you're just using a currently widely accepted method, then all the drug targets, because many people have access to a lot of this data already, are likely to have been discovered and identified. So it's unlikely to really bring anything novel to the table. So that's why we want an innovative computational method. Even though the data sets are larger, they're very similar to what's already available. So if you're just using a standard AI approach, why hasn't it already been found? So that's why we want innovation here.
Thanks, Amar. We've got a question from Leanne Cohen in Melbourne, I believe, at Monash University, and asking about the hypothesis section of the application. I hope you're familiar with the applications, but in general, what is expected for the hypothesis section of the application? And if the goal is to discover new targets, is it expected that there's a hypothesis about what they might be, or is this related to a hypothesis about how the model will function to deliver the unknown targets?
I'm happy to answer that, but I don't want to be the only person speaking.
Oh no, go for it, Amar.
Okay. So the hypothesis section, if you look again at I said that's the most important slide. Actually, you can see it. Let me just I think it's on page 17 of the application handbook. So robust scientific rationale and milestones, it would come under that. So it's 20% of the weighting, but it's a component of that 20%. The hypothesis can be, it just has to show scientific robustness. So you could have a hypothesis-free approach. I mean, it's difficult to find a truly hypothesis-free approach. Even what we currently call hypothesis-free, such as genome-wide association, you're saying, I don't know which gene variant is causing motor neuron disease, and I don't care, I'm going to test every single one. But there's still a hypothesis that genetics is responsible. So I think it's difficult to find a truly hypothesis-free approach. You've just got to clarify, why are you using the approach you're using? You must have an underlying reason and rationale for that, and that's what needs to be in there. Does that answer the question for the questioner?
Liam, if that doesn't answer your question, please come back. And we'll move to a question from Melanie Barlow, also in Melbourne. Yeah, Liam says yes. There's a question around the timing of the prize, and is the plan to have all the data accessible by April 2025 to facilitate the start of the project? And then the question around, or comment around, the 9-month being a quick turnaround for phase 1, and so it comments on the timing. I think the question is to 2026.
2026.
So the data being accessible by April 2026, and then 9 months to facilitate stage 1.
Yeah.
Yes,
Look,
I can
Amar,
answer that. Challenge Works
great.
have a couple of very dedicated data scientists working on this project, including Amalia Papanikolaou, who's a full-time scientist employed by Challenge Works specifically on this, and she's worked very, very hard to bring together all the data sources onto a trusted research environment, and it is planned to be ready for April 2026. Yes, it's already being tested out, actually.
Yeah.
So I think she's done really well on that one.
Right. And coming back to the APAC region, with the Longitude Prize being a global prize open to organisations worldwide, including academic groups, companies, biotechs, not-for-profits, and partnerships between these. What opportunities do you see in the APAC region for the Longitude Prize? What can APAC bring to the table here?
I think I'm supposed to answer that, Davor.
In addition to everyone, everyone here in the room.
Well, I'll start. Well, it's always nice, I mean, we've seen a lot of the data and a lot of the research is being done in, I feel like a broken record, but it's really the Western Caucasian population. Although, there is some diversity, but I think bringing the Asia Pacific, that diverse data set is incredibly important, because I think, this is where we might be missing potential targets, potential treatment targets. So that's one. I think the other thing is also just raising the awareness, being, Asia Pacific region is, makes up most of the world population. So having that engagement is incredibly important. Not just Australia, but I'm hoping that, I don't know whether there's this, I know to somebody from Japan, but I think getting, China, Japan, Korea, India, these are also innovative hubs in terms of technology, and also they've got data sets that are very rich that might not be quite as accessible as what there is in terms of Project Mind, for instance. So being part of this is in a way allowing the world to come together, because there will be that kind of sharing of what's happening in other parts of the world together with what's accessible within the Longitude Prize itself, platform that is. So yeah, so that's where I think that it's important for this to be truly global approach. We really need Asia Pacific involved in the mix for sure.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So if you remember the slide I showed, the different data sets available, They are, as Tina points out, largely European ancestry data sets, and nearly all of our genomics and multi-omics knowledge is from European data sets. There's not that many controls available. There's only 3,600, and that's a weakness of the data set. So any group that can bring in additional, even controls, would be useful. But ideally, people in the Asia Pacific region able to join, if they can bring in their own samples and therefore really show the power of the diversity of the group. Because we know in genomics, different populations can have very different genomic backgrounds, and that's true for all of the different omics. So even within Europe, places like the Netherlands don't have SOD1 variants, even though Belgium next door and France next door do. How can you explain that? But that's what we see. So we see, and we see the same with all of the different variants. Each ancestry in each country even can be very different. So having that available will be useful. And just to answer that question that's just appeared in the chat about whether groups that can bring in their samples will be seen more favorably. I mean, it's not one of the explicit judging criteria, but it could be leveraged by a group that's able to do that by pointing out replication and data robustness, which is number 4. You know, that you'd have a method for replication and data robustness because you've got this more diverse data set.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amar. That was going to lead to my next question about interrogating own data sets, whether judges will find that essential, or whether that's something that will be still critically reviewed with what tools they will be using to interrogate that data in combination with data sets that are also available. Is there further comment on that front, or?
Yeah, I think this is all about persuading the judges that your application fulfills the judging criteria. So you just have to make that very robust argument. And I think having your own data certainly helps with you being able to persuade judges that you have robust data that can replicate and is valid across ALS. It's not essential. So if you're a small grouping that doesn't have that data, it's not necessarily going to disadvantage you, because you could show replication and data robustness in other ways. But if you do have that, then obviously that's an easy win for you rather than a more difficult win.
I'll go back to the previous question from Melanie about diversity of teams, and your thinking about, as judges, about the diversity of teams and also the timing. Do you want the demonstration that you can feasibly deliver on the proposal and deliver a team that has breadth of clinical molecular biology data scientist data already in phase 1, or could the phase 1 be data scientist only, and then you're demonstrating a plan of how different parts will come together through stages 2 and 3? So just the timing of what's necessary for phase 1.
Yeah. Again, I'm happy to answer that unless you'd like to go, Tina or Sophie.
No, I think you designed. Yeah, you designed this prize, so you got.
I helped design it. I didn't design it. I helped design it.
Yes,
don't blame me.
Out of the bag. You helped to design it, so you have to answer these questions.
Yes. So the answer is multidisciplinary expertise is crucial, and having just AI or computational scientists on board isn't going to be enough. And the reason is we want people who also understand neurodegeneration and ALS in the team. And the only, I would say, of the disciplines, the only one that isn't necessary at the early stage is wet lab experience, because that's not going to happen until stages 2 and 3. So your multidisciplinary team doesn't have to include those people at the present, but you would need somebody with neurodegeneration expertise, someone with computational expertise. All of those aspects have to be in there.
Yeah, and I think it was mentioned, right, Amar, that you could, if you didn't have a partner, that you could actually reach out to the organizers, to try and match you with somebody, because they've got access to people that could help kind of build that diverse team that you need. Yeah. Yes,
exactly. So if you're not sure if your team is diverse enough, you could reach out to ChallengeWorks and say, these are the members of our team. Can you pair us with anyone else you think is important?
On that front, I would advise, if you are questioning the diversity of your team and you would like to reach out to Challenge Works, do so as soon as possible, because the application deadline of the 3rd of December still applies. So the sooner you can get in touch, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wonder whether there is scope for, I mean, we're talking about some people might, I mean, for instance, like in Malaysia, I'm probably not going to put in a submission from here, but there is scope to work, for groups to come together and kind of bring together like data sets from different population, have a PI so that they bring people together and take that lead to put this, through. I suppose that's another thing that they could do to make it even more enriched and more diverse.
Coming back to your comment, Amar, on wet lab work being in stage 3 and a later part of the program. So are you saying that the wet lab specialist wouldn't need to necessarily be a part of the team in stage 1, and wouldn't need to focus on stage 3 as part of the stage 1 application? Or in stage 1, would you already need to have a plan in place to engage those collaborative teams that have wet lab specialty?
I think we'd want to see in this bit of stage 1, where we're just selecting who's going to go forward to the computational bit. You don't have to have the wet lab expertise, but by the end of this, when you're submitting, when you're saying this is what we've done over the first 9 months and this is how we're going to take it to the next stage, you do then need to be able to say, here is the wet lab plan. So if you've got a wet lab person early on, that's obviously going to be useful. But it's not essential at this stage. Your multidisciplinary team doesn't have to include a wet lab person at this stage, but does need to include everybody else.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I will throw a question to Sophie about the perspective of a principal funder and the M&D Association with regards to you mentioned in your slides that this is one of the largest projects supported by the M&D Association, but also, coming back to, how different or unique is this program to other programs that the MNDA has supported?
We are advancing as an association that traditionally we have funded very academic research grants, and that tends to be a little bit siloed, that it's a regular research grants as opposed to larger programs. We have branched out a little bit in recent years, such as program funds to the UK M&D Research Institute, which is also meant to bring together researchers in the UK. And we want to expand a little bit more internationally as well. So this is by far the largest program grants we have ever funded. And the fact that it's higher risk than usual as well, including AI and the international scale of it, it's just completely unprecedented for us. But we really do believe in this program.
Thanks. Do you have any comments on that angle, Amar and Tina, about the uniqueness of this prize and how it compares to other research grants that may be available now versus going forward or previously?
Should I go first? I think the AI approach, I think, is very exciting, and encouraging the diversity, the multidisciplinary. That I think, I'm hoping that will bring more global perspective. And of course, like I think Melanie's already written there, whether it's going to be accessible in the future. I don't know whether the answer is no, you have to apply for the Longitude Prize. But, having access to the database, like you said, in one platform, that's pretty amazing. So that's incredibly unique, I think, just overall. Yeah.
Yes, I would agree with both of those points. So having all of this data in one place, where it's with one application, is one of the great strengths of this prize. The data is available. I mean, you could apply for all of these data sets independently right now if you wanted, but only if you want to spend the next 5 years filling out forms and legal agreements. Whereas you can just apply through one system now and get access to it. So I think that's a great power. the fact that you're bringing in multidisciplinary teams is really very important. I mean, there are programs where people are encouraged to have a multidisciplinary approach, but still people tend to work with the people they know, and it tends to be a much smaller thing. The international aspect of it is very powerful, and then using the advanced computational methods, but partnered with all of the other components of what you would need to really identify a new drug. All of those things are very powerful and new. And the fact that it's all available on a single platform through the Amazon Web Server, actually, I think it's through Nexus, through that platform, means that it's relatively easy. So that those kind of barriers have been removed. How do you handle 20,000 people's whole genome sequences? You need high performance computing to do that. It costs a lot of money. This lowers that barrier massively. So I think all of those things make it a very interesting and novel approach.
And to comment on Melanie's question as well about whether the ALS data repository will only be accessible through the Longitude Prize, as far as I'm aware, ChallengeWorks are exploring whether it's possible to make this a data platform available after the Challenge Prize as well.
Yeah, so watch this space, but also Melanie, make sure there's an application from the WeHi in Melbourne in collaboration, worldwide collaboration as well. Now, just to finish up on some advice on what a strong application will look like. Do you have any tips to strengthen applications, to make strong applications that you can share with viewers today?
So the most important thing, the most important two really, I mean, they're in order. They're in the order that they're presented on page 17 of the application handbook. So the most important thing is have an innovative computational method and have a multidisciplinary team that really shows great expertise, and then show that what you're going to do isn't crazy. It has a reasoning behind it, and it's obvious why you think this might work, and how long you think it might take. So those, if you just do that well, then you've got 70% of the score. You know, that's those three things. So innovative computational approach, a truly multidisciplinary team where you've got proper deep knowledge of each of the different components in the multidisciplinary team, and then this robust scientific approach, so what you're doing makes sense. It doesn't have to have a hypothesis, but I think it's very difficult truly in science to have no hypothesis, even if your hypothesis is that ALS can be solved by AI. You know, that there is a hypothesis no matter what you're doing. You just have to demonstrate it.
So strong collaboration. Sorry, Tina.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tina. Yep.
No, I was just going to say Amar has already explained the thing. I think that's basically it. Yeah, whatever what you've just said. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a technical question, sorry, around the compute area and whether the compute is funded as part of the prize.
My understanding is it is. We can reach out.
So we have.
Thank you, Sophie.
We have DNA, Nexus, and Amazon Web Services generously contributing as data partners the compute. So that's not part. You don't have to use part of the funding for the compute. No.
Yeah. So if your successful application is successful, then you'll have access to those technologies and platforms to mine the data, which is, I think, again, it's a tribute to ChallengeWorks who have been able to put this together to enable this to occur, to really bring the data together, to really bring the compute power together as well, and also encouraging others to bring their own data and compute power as well, and to see how that aligns and works together with what will be available as part of the prize. Are there any other things to consider?
I don't know. I think it's just the diversity part of it. I don't know what you think, Amar, is how do we get people connected? Because, you know, the multidisciplinary now is basically having different groups of people with different specialties. But it would be wonderful if somewhere, you know, whether at the start, ideally at the start, for groups who have been collaborators to actually come together, because I think that would just strengthen the application. Having people from different, you know, because we always have collaborations with different parts of the world, PIs from different parts of the world. If those individuals could come together and build on that strength, I think that would make a very strong application.
Yes, and there's no reason. I mean, you are a world leader in ALS, for example, Tina. There's no reason why you couldn't be. I mean, there is, because you're a judge. But if you weren't a judge, you could be a participant in one of the applications quite easily. There's no reason to restrict the application just to your own country.
Yeah,
you
no,
can
absolutely.
You can really be truly
Yeah.
diverse in that.
And I think that's what we want. We want to see innovation. We want to see people reaching out to others and bringing groups together to actually try and get this done. Because from what I understand, this is not expected to be your day-to-day. Finally, this is going to be something that you do as part of your work. But it's not going to be, the funding is not going to be everything that funds the work that you normally do anyway. So, trying to apply and bringing a different perspective, I think, is, as opposed to seeing different labs competing with each other. I think it's nice if people can come together. I know it's a pipe dream, but I hope we see that.
There is an element of the prize, just as a last question, again, sorry to keep asking questions, but one of the criterions as an important 10% of the actual prize, or the judging criteria, is leveraging resources. Now, you touched on that, Amar, in your presentation. What kind of things are you looking for with leveraging resources? Like, for example, does that include external funding from other sources, or?
Yeah, that would certainly that would certainly help, because obviously the prize, the amount given to each group for example, for the first 9 months, it's not very much in research terms. It's a kind of sweetener, and the main reason to enter this is for the prestige, not because you're going to make a lot of money from the prize money as you go along in the first stages. So having additional funding would certainly help. But I think the most important thing actually would be if you can bring anything else to the table. So have you got additional data that you could bring, or a specific type of expertise that nobody else has, or you have some other kind of in-kind contribution that you can make. Those are the things that will be helpful for that final 10%.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Amar. Thank you, Sophie, and thanks, Tina. I really appreciate you being here and sharing perspectives about the prize itself, how to build a strong applications, and what you'll be looking for as a judge's perspective, judges, ambassadors, and principal funders' perspectives. And I'll just share my screen by closing with a few slides. And then just to say that a reminder that applications for stage 1 do close on the 3rd of December. This is 3rd of December, 3 p.m. GMT time. So be aware of the time zones. So it's actually starting to get quite urgent with applications. So keep forming your teams, ensuring a multidisciplinary approach, collaborative approach, new angle to research that you can bring, or data that you can bring. Reach out to ChallengeWorks with any questions on the prize. That's through the QR code that you can see now, and also through the URL. Reach out to ChallengeWorks to help with your collaborative multidisciplinary teams. And if you would like to, if you would like to view this webinar again, registrants will be provided access to a recording, and which will also be available on the Vitamin D websites as well. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for listening, and thanks for sharing also, Tina, Amar, and Sophie. Many thanks and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.